of where things are at right now. Now I'll open it up for questions. All right, Molly Wop 9, you are good to speak.
The stuff you spoke was like quite honestly like bullshit. Like first of all, like Bantus didn't get iron from Central Sudan because there's no evidence for that. African ironworking. The oldest evidence for it is Nigeria, 2000 BC. Iron slag was found. So that's pretty false in that sense. Another thing, you said Zulus, like South African Bantu speakers, they only have 5% white ancestry. No, I mean, what was that?
Yeah, I mean, that's...
No, it doesn't max out at 5%, bro. Much higher. In fact, in some COSA groups, it goes up to 50%. All right, and it's not sex biased. You know, you'll find Khoisan Y DNA in the Bantu groups as well as the mtDNA. You understand?
I mean, a lot of that comes from the further northern branches, not from the South African branches of the Y-DNA. It's like the A1, 2.
No, it's not the northern. No, bro,
Integrated.
listen, it's not the northern branches, okay?
Not the Khoisan.
They have what is it? They carry South African mtDNA, Y-DNA, as well as
Yeah,
no, it's not.
like
It's not the northern branches, bro.
Which is associated with the Khoisan.
Yeah, and they also carry the Y-DNA from like basically it was basically intermixing, which is why you have the evidences in the language. You know, the clicking. You know, they have various South African languages will have the clicking inside of them.
Yeah, you can definitely have linguistic evidence without mixing. I mean, just look at what influence English had on the Indian languages.
There's both genetic, linguistic, cultural influence inside of it. I wouldn't say it's a genocide or a subjugation. You get me?
Definitely was a genocide.
No, it wasn't, bro. There is no evidence for that, bro.
Right? And Pygmies.
No, the Pygmies. I recall the Pygmies. There's a recent study that came out. It was like their population structure and distribution wasn't affected by the introduction of Bantu agricultural farmers. You posted it yourself too, so you know which one I'm talking about.
Did I?
Yeah, you posted it.
I mean, there's the one where you had what looks like there was kind of a pygmy revival.
No, there wasn't that. No, in fact, the Bantu groups were the ones who had decreased in population. The population side, the Pygmy group actually increased after the arrival of Bantu speakers in the Congo Basin. If I find it, I'll send it to you. But I know you posted it before because I replied to it.
Okay, yeah, send it over to me. If it's the one I'm thinking of, it looks like they had kind of a revival when there was that mass.
No, there wasn't. In the study, the group that was affected were the Bantu groups. They after like I think it was 800 like BC or something like that. Their population sizes they decreased, and but this didn't affect Pygmy groups. And in fact, it actually increased after they arrived. So I don't know how you could use this and say there was a genocide or subjugation. Which I've read early 1900 ethnographies about the Pygmy groups. I've never seen anything that mentions like slavery or anything of that sort. I've only seen like a mutual relationship basically. The Pygmies will.
I mean, mutual relationship because they're enslaved.
No, bro. They weren't enslaved, bro. Come on. No, yes, they wasn't. No, they weren't enslaved. The Pygmies, they would I forgot. The Bantus would like basically raise crops, and they would trade with the Pygmies for I think it was like I don't know, for like bushmeat or something, or like I'm not sure what exactly Pygmies gave to them, but it was a mutual trade, like what happens in everywhere else in the world.
I mean, there was stuff like that in the American South too, where you
Okay, but
have
I look,
tribes.
I've looked through all the early 1900
They weren't
documents.
slaves. Like
I haven't read anything
the
about
slaves.
cannibalism or enslavement of pygmies. I haven't seen it. Only place I've seen it is like in your
I
spaces.
retweet on my feed.
Hmm?
It's in a War Civilization. It's you guys in
Go
a
ahead
discussion.
and drop that in the jumbotron because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, let me post it real quick.
Another thing, what was it? The Hutus and Tutsis. Those were more of social classes rather than actual tribes because they all speak the same language. Yeah,
DNA the DNA shows them as being
yeah,
very
they're
distinct.
distinct. They're distinct, but they're more like social classes. A Hutu could become a Tutsi then if he had acquired enough cattle, and same with a Hutu. I mean, same with a Tutsi. A Tutsi could become a Hutu. They're social classes. They're not distinct tribes, bro. These are social classes. Um, yeah.
All right, I found the tweet. How am I supposed to share this in the group?
Just hit the share button.
Yeah, where's the share button? Sorry.
Oh yeah, another thing. The East Africans, you mentioned them raiding the Congo. That wasn't done by Horn Africans, bro. That was those were Omani, slave traders. They'd send people to go raid the Congo and bring them back to like I think somewhere around Tanzania. All I know it wasn't in the Horn.
No, they definitely had Somalis and Ethiopians doing it too.
Well, yeah,
You
they
know,
had their own form of slavery, but the one you had referenced where they raid the Congo was the I think Omani slave trade.
yeah, I mean that was part of it. They weren't the only ones doing it though.
Well, that's different from the Omani slave trade. That's the one that raided the Congo.
Okay, I posted the piece from War Before Civilization regarding pygmy slavery. Yeah, also on the
Where is this
Nigerian
source from?
for the Nigerian ironworking, a lot of that stuff had to do with poor radiocarbon dating.
No, bro. The
Yes.
radiocarbon dating, there's a period in which it becomes unreliable, but that the date, the 2000 BC, falls outside that range. The range is about
With the radiocarbon dating is you've got to test the organic matter around it.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
you're not really testing the metal itself.
No, they're not
With
testing the metal. They're testing the
wood
charcoal.
to go and especially with charcoal, like charcoal's infamous for giving bad dates.
No. Look, bro. Can I speak?
Sure.
They're not cutting down any old tree. There's specific types of trees that will produce the best charcoal. So it's not just any specific. They're not going to take a rotting tree that's been dead for like 5 centuries and then try and make it into charcoal. That's not how it works. They'll cut down specific trees, and from that specific tree, you'll get an accurate radiocarbon dating. Okay.
I don't think so, man. That's not what I've read.
Okay.
But
What have you read then?
I'll go ahead and I'll post the stuff. I know the stuff from Nigeria for 2000 BC is not widely believed anymore.
It,
Because there was similar stuff I remember where people were talking about, like certain radiocarbon datings for Amerindian sites, in the Great Lakes that were like 8000 BC and stuff. Just due to the water contamination, because you've got like organic plant matter that's dying off and kind of messing with the radiocarbon. The dates were really skewed off. It's not a perfect method.
the problem was that they had believed that the radiocarbon dates were thrown off because of old wood. But you don't use old rotting wood, especially in humid climates, to create charcoal from. It doesn't work like that.
pretty old too, even without
Hmm?
being dead. I mean, there's stuff in the Americas that's like, older than
Well,
Columbus.
this is a tropical climate. Wood rots very fast in it and becomes unusable for charcoal.
Here, let me just look up the thing on the Nigerian ironworking.
There wasn't any controversy about that date. In fact, one of the researchers who had previously, criticized an ironworking site inside what was it, Central Africa for being too early, had said this Nigerian sample provides good evidence of the antiquity of ironworking in Western Africa.
All right, so let me read this from Wikipedia. Controversy flared again in 2007 with the publication of excavations by Etienne Zingado and colleagues in the Central African Republic. At Obwe, they excavated an undated iron forge yielding 8 consistent radiocarbon dates of 2000 BC. This would make Obwe the oldest ironworking site in the world and more than 1,000 years older than any other dated evidence in Central Africa. Opinion among African archaeologists is sharply divided. Some specialists accept this interpretation, but archaeologist Bernard Kleist has argued that Obwe is a highly disturbed site, with older charcoal having been brought up to the level of the forge by digging of pits in older levels. Kleist also raised questions about the unusually good state of preservation of metallic iron from the site.
Okay,
And I guess the other thing that kind of gets me too is
that is in the Nigerian.
if
The
the iron,
Nigerian.
occurs there, why didn't it just spread, everywhere else?
What are you talking about?
It's a pretty advantaged technology. It's a
It did
very
spread everywhere,
advantaged
bro.
technology just because of the plentifulness of iron. You'd think you'd have a lot more sites that'd be developing.
There are multiple like 900 BC plus sites around Western and Central Africa.
Well, 900 BC. I mean, that's the beginning of the Iron Age. 1,000 to
Well, yeah,
500.
there's a few
That's
sites older than.
what I would expect, and that's when you see kind of a more penetration, into the jungles, especially after 500 BC, where iron tools would be extremely advantageous.
For instance, like
Kind of
if it was,
the first millennium BC ironworking dates make a lot of sense, but the 2000 BC date just doesn't line up with everything else.
and why is that?
Because we don't see, kind of the geographic and archaeological changes that you would expect with the development of ironworking.
You do.
Okay, like where's the penetration deep into the jungles?
Is that a requirement? You see, as soon as after 2000 Bs, when you start seeing stuff like
that's what we see everywhere else in the world when iron gets developed. Like in India, iron gets developed and they immediately start cutting down the the rainforests along the Ganges. Why doesn't that occur until the first millennium BC in Africa? Because ironworking was invented, the early first millennium BC in Africa.
Don't believe that.
A lot of this stuff, you get contradictory evidence, and you just got to go with kind of the weight of it, because there's going to be anomalous findings and everything. All right, Adulician, you are good to speak. What is your question or comment?
Yeah.
Adulician?
Yeah. So I just wanted to correct the claim you made about the domestication of elephants occurring around 200 years ago by Africans. I think, like, I know the Aksumites, they were pretty famous for exporting elephants right through the port of Adulis. And there's this even famous event, right, which the Muslims often, I think this is even in the Quran. They call it the Am al-Fil, which basically just translates to the year of the elephant, because that's when the Aksumite soldiers had approached the Kaaba, right, in Mecca, to destroy it. And like apparently, according to that story, the birds defeated the elephants. But the point is just that, especially around East Africa, I'm not sure for the rest of Africa, but I know in East Africa, the Aksumites exported elephants. Even before the Aksumites, one of the main exports by the Puntites, right? There's this, I guess, kingdom a few millennia before Aksum became an empire. They also exported elephants through the port of Adulis to the ancient Egyptians. So I think, like, I don't know exactly why you said the elephant hadn't been domesticated in Africa, like, until a few hundred years ago.
I mean, if I said that, that was poorly phrased. What I meant for the elephants was that kind of the wild herds of the elephants were causing problems. Where they just, they'd rampage around. The weapons weren't necessarily, up until kind of the spread of modern firearms, like the high caliber elephant guns. It's very, very difficult to kind of stop them from rampaging around, eating all the food, destroying the villages, that kind of thing. I'm well aware that the ivory trade goes way back, and you had war elephants that were being, used by the Carthaginians and Indians and everything.
Yeah, right. And that was also one of the main, they weren't only used as exports, but they were actually war elephants. Like that's how the Aksumites used them when they conquered Arabia and also internally in the Horn of Africa. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify that point.
Wait, they used elephants to conquer Arabia?
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to bring up the Amel Fil, because there's this famous chapter in the Quran where it retells how elephants were being used by the Aksumites to actually conquer or to destroy the Kaaba, right? The Kaaba in Mecca. And they're basically using all of these elephants approaching the Kaaba to destroy it. So elephants were definitely used by the Aksumites. I don't know to conquer Arabia, but they were used in Arabia at least, and I'm not aware of elephants existing in Arabia at that time, especially not southern Arabia, where the Aksumites had like conquered most of Arabia.
Really interesting. I had no idea. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so if you look at the Jumbotron, I posted a couple links to some documents and studies that kind of contradict what you say, Nemets. Here, we combine ethnographic and genetic data on Central African hunter-gatherers to show that their current distribution and density is explained by ecology rather than by a displacement to marginal habitats due to recent farming expansions.
Can you DM me the link? I'll take a look at it.
It's in, I mean, you posted it yourself. It's right there in the Jumbotron if you can't see it.
Gotcha. Okay. I see it now. All right. While I'm reading that, Nitro Rice Dealer, you're good to speak. All right. Kusism, you're good to speak.
Hello.
I can hear you.
All right.
What's
Yeah.
your
So I only had like 3 gripes with what you said. Overall, it was a good talk, very insightful. But I just wanted to clear 3 things up. So the first thing was you mentioned 5% of Somali ancestry came from Bantus from the expansion. So you said,
Yes, that's when I ran it on
or G25,
G25.
yeah. But I think those samples were from an area where there were a lot of admixed Somali, and it's not representative of the population at large at all. You know, I've looked into it quite a bit, and yeah, so that's one thing I wanted to mention. Another thing I wanted to mention is you made mention of Bantus conquering the Southern Kushites quite a bit. You put a lot of emphasis on them defeating or conquering them, and if you were to take a look at, say, the haplogroups carried by the Kikuyu and the Kamba, so Northeast Bantus in Kenya, it doesn't seem to be the case. 19% of them carry E3B, which isn't really indicative of a conquering. And the final and third thing I wanted to say was about the Tutsis. You said they came from Somalia, and I think their haplogroups match more with the first wave of Kushites to enter the Horn, so the Savannah Pastoral Neolithic, and rather than Somalis, they were the Southern Kushites you talked about being conquered. So those are the 3 things I wanted to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of the Kushites originally spread, Levant, Yemen, and then to Somalia, and then from Somalia, you have the Somalis that are still there, and then the Southern Kushites split off pretty early. That's
But
right.
Yeah, but it's kind of misleading, because the first wave of Kushites would have been, so like in one go, the Southern Kushites would have been in Tanzania. So what you see in the Savannah Pastoral Neolithic, they carry, I think, the haplogroup you find in I think Natufians, rather than the EM78 we carry. Somalis carry like EV32 is what Somalis carry, and they carry something a bit different, and that's what you see in Tutsi, and they're quite like we diverged quite a while ago. But yeah, so that's what I want to bring up.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because my understanding was there was, I think it was around like the fall of Rome, 500 AD or so. That's when you kind of have the, Nilo-Saharans moving further south, and they, kind of come in contact with the, not necessarily Central Sudanics, but like a different group of, Nilo-Saharans. They come in contact with the Southern Kushites, kind of uncertain how much they, interacted or to what degree. But that was kind of the group that goes and, after they, kind of get overrun by the Bantu and then eventually overthrow them, it's kind of that mixture that becomes the Tutsis.
Yeah, you see, that's and I understand. I see your standing, but the language used. You say they got overthrown. Is that because of the language shift? The fact that they speak a Bantu language? Because the language shift isn't always indicative of say someone being conquered or overthrown.
Yeah, that's very, very true. I was going off of the UNESCO history, which, if I'm remembering properly, argues that they were, pretty much defeated and marginalized up until their comeback kind of in the 15th to 17th centuries.
Maybe maybe I should read up on it more. But so I'm more interested in genetics. I love history, but I'm more interested in genetics. And through the haplogroups, these populations carry, whether it's in Kenya or Rwanda, or essentially people living now where the Southern Kushites used to live. You can see that there was admixing, and it was less of a conquering, more of an assimilation.
That is true.
I mean, the big East African DNA paper, I can post it on the kind of billboard or whatever you call it, jumbotron, says the Luhya specifically were, pretty much pure Bantu.
Well, they're a bit of a rare case, I guess, because other Eastern Bantu, such as like Kikuyu, they have substantial admixture from I think Cushitic groups or
Yeah, Christian groups, and even more importantly, it's white DNA.
Yeah,
at 20%, that's not exactly. I don't think
even
you can.
out of Zomo, I believe it was around 30. I don't know if it was 30 or like 20, but it's substantial. It's not.
Yeah.
Not like a small 5% or nothing.
It's not a big problem, but I just wanted to clear it up and see if maybe my understanding was wrong.
All right, Nightmare Vision, you were good to speak.
I saw this documentary. It was really well produced. I can't recall the title, but it was about this kingdom in Africa where there were these two princes that were arguing over who was going to be able to rule it. And it was just incredible. Like this place was able to turn itself invisible, and it just had all this technology that European people could never even imagine. And I can't believe that I'm listening to this. You talk in this space and you don't even mention this place. I can't recall the name, but I mean, what's going on? Thanks.
That's trolling.
Yeah, that was a good troll.
That was poor. I didn't even smirk at that.
Got a giggle out of me. Okay.
All right, DeWeet, you were good to speak. What is your question or comment?
Thanks. That's for me, Dawit. Am I next?
Yes, you're good to speak.
All right. Okay. Yeah. I have a couple of questions. Somebody was talking about the port of Adulis, Axumites, and the elephants. So, if I recall correctly, Hannibal of Carthage also used elephants in the Punic War. Is that your understanding? That's one. Number two, you're talking about the Afro-Asiatic language family, and in specific reference to the Semitic language. It's my understanding that literature has been revised recently. I remember reading an article by the late, Richard Pancras, who was a prolific Ethiopian historian, saying, in fact, the Semitic language might have originated in Ethiopia and went to Arabia and came back, sort of. And currently, Ethiopia has the richest Semitic language variety. So if diversity implies origin to some extent, possibly the Semitic language originated in Ethiopia. That's number two. And number three, I don't know if you know this, but could you please talk about the origin of the term Kush? We have the Cushitic language family, which falls under the Afro-Asiatic language family. We have the kingdom of Kush with C-U-S-H or K-U-S-H, sometimes Nubia. And also we have Cush, one of the sons of Noah, the biblical reference. So if you could, sometimes they are conflated, sometimes they are assumed to be together or the same, I don't know. But if you talk about Cush and talk about the Semitic language in relation to the Afro-Asiatic language family, where it originated, and also Hannibal of Carthage and the use of elephants in warfare. Thanks.
So for the Kush, I need to do a lot more reading at some point. Probably in a couple months, I'll do a East African space, kind of focusing on, the Kushites, both with a K and with a C. The Ethio-Semites, all those guys. I got to review it again though before I give you an answer. I know there's actually, I think, 12 DNA samples from Meroe. I know I'm mispronouncing that, Moroe. Which is actually a decent
Meroe.
data to work with. Regarding, kind of the origins of the Semitic languages being in East Africa, I know that was Christopher Ehret's view. He's a pretty solid guy, makes some good arguments. I think there's like a serious argument to be made that Afro-Asiatic specifically originated, in East Africa, maybe Eritrea area. And I can't remember the name, but there was a guy on Anthrogenetica that made a pretty convincing case that the Kebaran culture of the Middle East, which I think was like 14,000 to 10,000 BC, derived from this culture in the Sinai, which in return derived from East Africa. And his argument, which I found pretty convincing, honestly, was that was kind of the Proto-Afro-Asiatic language. For Semitic specifically, I do think it originally came from the Levant or Mesopotamia. Diversity of the Semitic languages used to be a lot higher way back in the Bronze Age. I think like Eastern Semitic, was the most divergent, even though it's totally dead now. And then you had, kind of the moribund South Semitic languages. You've just had kind of these repeated spread over spreads and civilizations so old there, and you have kind of the leveling of the dialects. Whereas Ethiopia, it's a lot more mountainous. So there's been more kind of linguistic divergence due to isolation, that kind of thing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And if you talk about, Hannibal of Carthage and the elephants and their domestication in the Punic War, which is much older than the point of reference you were making earlier, I believe. Thanks.
Yeah, for the elephants, I phrased that badly. I was just kind of referring to, in the main lecture that the wild elephants were just kind of devastating for African civilizations and settled life, because they'd go and, just rampage around villages. They can eat huge amounts of crops, that kind of thing. So, I wasn't saying that they weren't domesticated or tamed or, had their ivory harvested.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thank you. It was a great lecture. I enjoyed it. Thanks very much again.
Thank you. All right, Kahufu, you are good to speak. Kahufu, were you there?
Yes, I'm there, man. Thank you for having me. Well, I'll be quick. Actually, I'm just standing up to agree with a lot of things that Molly might have said in this space. There's the problem about things written about Africa is that they were written by outsiders for the purpose of asserting certain narratives. That's the problem. As you know, the saying that says, if the lion can be able to ride, the story will stop to glorify the hunter. That's exactly the situation is in Africa. With regards to the pygmies, as you say, and how they were enslaved by the Bantus, it's a narrative that is also spread by I would say, the white people in the Southern Africa as well, when they want to, in a way, push or make it right their colonization of the southern part of Africa, saying that we did the same to those people, while in fact that is not even true. What Molly was saying is much more closer to what the reality is about our relationship and those people, by the way.
Yeah, there's a lot of evidence of like intermixing, like genetic and like cultural, even linguistic evidence.
Yes,
of intermixing.
Yes, of
multiple groups. Like,
of course, you're right, Molly. Of course, you're right. That's it. And
yeah,
not only that, by the way, those people, when we came in contact with them, when we moved down south, because they had been to that part of Africa for thousands and thousands of years, so they knew all the plants that could heal and plants that you can eat in that part of the world. They are the ones who taught us. Like, for example, if it's not even an example, when Africans were taken from Africa to America to be made slaves, They woke up and find themselves in a place where they didn't know the plant that can heal them or the plant that they can eat for survival, because the plants around them were new to them. So that exactly what happened when the Bantus migrated down south to the area that was uh, uh, inhabited by the Batwas. That's what we call them, by the way, the Batwa. Just as we are the Bantus, which simply means we are the people of Ntu. The Ba means who we belong to, and Tu means who we originate.
Oh, well, I do agree with this point that a lot of like history is like, you know, like a lot of, especially with regard to South Africa, a lot of it could be like fabricated. For instance, like South Africans, the white South Africans, they used to like promote the idea that they had arrived in South Africa before Bantu agriculturists, which obviously isn't true. But that was a ongoing like narrative that they had like pushed throughout most of the 19th century.